Hello guys, and welcome back to Joe's Adventures, and today we're doing part 234 of our Planet Zoo mod spotlights, where we take a look at some of the wonderful mods people are making and use them to talk about some of the wonderful biodiversity that we share our world with. So today we've got quite an interesting assortment. We've got a couple fish, a couple extinct animals too, a couple modern ones, a little bit of this and a little bit of that, which I'm quite excited to get stuck into. But J'Quatics has released a whole bunch of fish recently, so we're going to put a couple on this first bit here. So the first one we'll be looking at is the Cortez Rainbow Wrasse, done by, of course, J'Quatics. A very, very interesting one there. We'll actually have a look at this one swimming, because, it's a fish, we want to see it swimming. So the Cortez Rainbow Wrasse is in the genus Thalassosoma, which means basically the sea body, and the body of the sea, or colour of the sea. So really cool little guy. So these guys are found in marine reefs, so they're a reef-living fish. They live in depths between 0 to 64 meters, or typically around 2 to 25 meters, with tropical ranges of between 20 to 24 degrees Celsius. These guys are found around like the Pacific side of America, so they're found kind of around like Galapagos, into those sort of areas, like along the Central America and stuff like that. So quite an interesting little range there. So Eastern Pacific, Gulf of California to Peru, then that includes the Galapagos. We don't know exactly how big they get, but their maximum length is typically about 15 centimeters, about snout to max length from typically. And they've got a very typical, they're a type of wrasse, so they're not too different from any other species of wrasse. These guys tend to form small aggregations over reef, and they feed on suspended plankton and small hard-shelled invertebrates, very similar to a lot of other species of wrasse. And they're not really utilized for human consumption, which is really cool as well. And in terms of how they breed, they are actually a pelagic spawner. And sex reversal is actually completed in 2 to 6 weeks, so they can change sex like a lot of other fish can to make sure, they get the right everything going on there to have the right babies and stuff like that. They are considered least concern as of 2007. That's the date they were assessed. And they are fished for, aquariums and commercially. But other than that, not really. So yeah, really, really cool little fish. We'll actually have a look at the Zoopedia and see if we can get any more information. So we kind of covered all that. You can see its range there. Species data. Let's see what was Yep, they can change sex from female to male when dominant males are absent. They spend their night by wedging themselves in rock crevices. The coloration most intense during courtship and territorial displays. They're extremely fast swimmers, relying on speed rather than camouflage. And juveniles often clean parasites from larger fish, acting as a cleaner fish early in life. So yeah, that's very true of these guys. Very, very cool. So that's another J'Quatics one, a banger. So next up, we've got another J'Quatics, another fish that he's been working on. This is the yellowtail felicer. I believe how you say that. Not quite 100% sure. Anyone in the water yet? I think someone's heading in the water. I think that's very interesting how they just done in the water at that time. Anyway, we'll carry on. So this is, its scientific name is Queso cunning. It's also known as the red belly yellowtail fusser, the yellowtail fusser, or the robust felicia. These guys are a species of marine ray-finned fish and belong to the family Cassinidae and are native to Indian and West Pacific Oceans. West Pacific Ocean. It was first formally described in 1791 as Sparus cunning by German zoologist Marcus Elser Bolch, and the type location was Indonesia. And then the species placed the subgenus Ovidontes, and then cunning actually refers to the local name Icrateba cunning, or Ikra means the fish. So it refers to the local name of the species. So this species, you can see, has quite a laterally compressed body, quite a tall body. The jaws, vomer, and palatines have small conical teeth, and the dorsal and anal fin have scales, with the dorsal fin having about 10 spines and about 14 to 16 soft rays, with the anal having 3 spines and 10 to 12 soft rays, and the pectoral fins having about 17 to 20 fin rays, normally about 18 to 19. Quite a decent sized fish. They attain a maximum length of about 60 centimeters, or about 24 inches, and the rear of the back of the caudal fin and the dorsal surface of the caudal peduncle are yellow, and the rest of it is greyish blue, with the lower flanks of the abdomen being, you can see, a bit of a whitish pinkish going on there. You can kind of see that going on. The pectoral, pelvic, and anal fins are white to pink, and the pectoral fin as back in the axis, or the axle, and its upper parts of the body as well, as black on it. And the dorsal fin is greyish blue at the front and yellow at the rear, so you can see kind of that going on there. So very, very cool guy. So as I mentioned, these guys live in habitats that live in the Indo-West Pacific Ocean, ranging from Sri Lanka into southern India, east to Fiji, and to southern Japan, and south to northern Australia. And they occur in depths of between 0 to 60 meters, or about, 3 feet to about 196 feet, and often occurs in areas where visibility is poor. Let me see if I can find another one. Are they all out of the water again? No, of course they are. I want to find one in the water. There you go. What are you all about? Here we go. They often occur in salty areas where visibility is poor. Otherwise, it's found in coastal waters, typically above rocky and coral reefs. So queso cutting gathers in midwater schools, where they feed on zooplankton, such as scalps, dolloids, pteropods, heteropods, and chaetonads, and among other types of zooplankton, and are oviparous. So lay eggs and lay a large number of very small pelagic eggs. So in terms of fisheries, they are moderate in terms of target of coastal fisheries. They're quite important for fish markets or quite common in markets in Indonesia and the Philippines, and are caught using driver nets, gill nets, trawls, and hand lines. And this fish is caught as normally sold as fresh fish, but some of the catch is preserved for salted fish. And the juveniles are caught and can be used as bait by tuna fisheries. And they have been seen population declines in some areas because of overfishing, but overall their population seems stable, and they are considered least concern. So yeah, another really, really cool fishy. How can you not love a good fishy? I like a good fishy. Next up, we've got Lorby, who's given us the American black duck. So let's have a look at these guys here. The American black duck. So the American black duck, or Anas ruperans, is a large species of dabbling duck in the family Antatidae, which is the other types of ducks, and was described by William Brewster in 1902. It is the heaviest species in its genus, Anas. It weighs between 720 to 1,640 grams, or 1.6 to 3.6 pounds, and on average, and measures about 54 to 59 centimeters, or about 21 to 23 inches in length, with an 89 to 95 centimeter, or a 35 to 37 inch wingspan. It is sometimes somewhat resembles the female and ellipse male mallard in coloration, but is darker in plumage. The male and females are generally quite similar appearance, but the male's bill is yellow-white, while the female's is a dull green, with the dark marks on the upper mandible. So you can see this one is a female, so you can see if you can spot a male. There's a male, so that's kind of the minor differences there. It is native to eastern North America, but during the breeding season it can be found in coastal and freshwater wetlands from Saskatchewan and to the Atlantic of Canada, and the Great Lakes and the Adirondacks of the United States. It is a partially migratory species, mostly wintering in the east-central United States, especially in coastal areas. And it is considered least concern, by the way, so that's really, really cool. So, as I mentioned, we kind of talked about the size and stuff like that. Quite a wide range. In terms of behavior, it is omnivorous. It's got quite a varied diet. Like other species of dabbling ducks, they're not particularly fussy. So they'll feed on a wide variety of wetland plants, grasses, sedges, and duckweed and eelgrass and stuff like that. They also eat small mollusks, snails, amphipods, small fish, insects, and mussels. And especially during the breeding season, they'll eat of a lot of plant matter and animal matter. So extra stuff like that, like mayflies and stuff like that. So anything pretty much they can dabble. So, in terms of their breeding habitat, didn't mean to click that. In terms of their breeding habitat, they like to breed in alkaline marshes, bogs, lakes, rivers, and any kind of sort of areas of serious water sources. As we have a look at the cute little baby. Very similar to other species. In northern Saskatchewan, Manitoba, Ontario, and Quebec, and around the Great Lakes in the United States, so more north. It is partially migratory. Many winter in the east-central US, especially in coastal areas, but some will remain year-round in the Great Lakes. This duck is a rare vagrant to Great Britain and Ireland, where over the years several birds have settled there and bred there with local mallards. The resulting hybrids can present considerably, can be hard to identify. The nest sites are well concealed, often in the uplands. Egg clutches 6 to 14 oval eggs, which are varied white to buff green, and on average they measure about 59 millimeters, or about 2.3 inches long, and about 1.7 inches or 43 millimeters wide, and can weigh about 56 grams in weight. So hatching takes 30 days on average, but the incubation period typically takes about 25 to 26 days, with both sexes sharing the duty, although the male usually defends the territory while the female until the female reaches the middle of her incubation period. They take about 6 weeks to fledge, and once the eggs hatch, the hen lends the brood to rearing areas, leads the brood to rearing areas with abundant invertebrates and vegetation. One of the things as well is that these guys do hybridize quite extensively with the mallard. Some even consider the black duck, the American black duck, to be a subspecies of the mallard instead of a separate species. But it has been proposed they will, but we think most likely now it is considered to be its own species. It has been proposed that the American duck and the mallard were formerly separated by habitat preferences, with the black duck's plumage giving it advantages in shaded forest pools in eastern North America, while the lighter plumage gave it the mallards more advantage in open prairie areas. So, according to this view, the recent deforestation in the east has kind of broken down that habitat separation. So that means, mallards and black ducks meet a lot more and breed. However, rates of hybridization are known in this and most other avian hybrid zones, and it's actually presumed that the case with the American black duck in that past hybridization rates were lower than seen today, and also many avian hybrid zones are known to be stable and long-standing despite the occurrence of extensive interbreeding. The American black duck and the local mallard are now very difficult to extinguish by means of microcell-like comparisons, even if many specimens are sampled. And contrary to the study's claim, the question of whether the American halotype is the original mallard lineage is resolved. Their statement is that northern black ducks are no more distinct from mallards than their southern counterparts, only holds true in the regards of molecular markings tested, as birds indistinguishable according to these sets of microcell-like markers can still look different. So yeah, very interesting, kind of blurs the line of what is a species, which I always like to talk about and see. Have a look at the female again. In terms of their parasites and hazards and stuff, they often fall prey to the nests fall prey to gulls and raccoons and crows. Adults will be eaten by hawks and owls, bullfrogs and snapping turtles, eat many ducklings, and they don't get all sorts of different parasites. And in terms of the conservation, since 1988 they had been rated as least concern, as they have a large range and are not really threatened by extinction, and the total population is large, although it is declining. It's not declining nearly fast enough to make it, a concern for conservationists. But there has been lots of loss during, because it had drainage, filling of wetlands, urbanization, global warming, and rising sea levels have caused some declines. Hybridization itself may actually not be a major problem, since natural selection will make sure those genes live on as well. But making sure that some are still protected, and there's areas to try and protect these black ducks. So yeah, very, very cool one that we get to talk about. And another great one done by Lorby. I know we love a good Lorby mod. So, next up. Next one was done by Great Cakes Mod. We always love a Great Cakes mod. Species of monkey this time. I do love a monkey. So this is actually a species of monkey from Africa in the Congo. This is the Hallam's monkey, or Cerapithecus hamlani, also known as the owl-faced monkey. And this is a species of old world monkey that inhabits the bamboo and primary rainforests of the Congo. This species is actually considered quite rare and is only known from a few specimens, and little is known about it. However, these specimens tend to be widely distributed across the eastern part of the Congo, from the Ipulu River to the Lugunga River and the Congo River to the Kalabe forests, and one example from northwestern Rwanda. And genetically, or geographically, it corresponds more with the Lahurst monkey, which one we've actually covered before. And it travels on the ground, though it may be awake primarily by night. So it may be nocturnal. So originally it was grouped in the same species as L. hosti, or C. hosti, but then Elliot in 1913 noticed different cusps on the third molar and resigned it to a separate genus, and this is actually believed to be an intermediate between Cetopithecus and Cercocolobus. There is one subspecies other than nominate subspecies. Not really too much difference as well. But they are quite big. So the males are much larger than females. So this is a female. So if you can spot a male. So that's a female. Is you a male? No, you're a female. Where's the male? There's a male. Here's a big male. So you can see quite a bit larger. So males weigh about 7 to 10 kilograms on average, while females weigh an average 4.5 to 6 kilograms on average. And it is also thought that they are thought to be frugivores or folivores, so feeding on fruits and leaves. With some published reports indicating these guys live in small groups of about 10 members or less, with one male and multiple females. And while no data shows they occur in monogamous groups. The species have been found only at higher elevations, above 900 meters and up to 4,600 meters above sea level. And in color, you can see they're generally quite a dark color with a characteristic white stripe that extends down the root of the nose into the upper lip, which kind of gives them that owl-like look. Probably not the best look in the light. Let's see if you can actually spot you there. That probably gives you a better look there. So you can see that owl look there. And gives the name the howler monkey. The name Hallam's monkey, or the scientific epithet Hameli, comes from the animal dealer that actually first brought the species to Western attention to the London Zoo. It also has scent glands on its chest that it uses to mark its territory, and both sexes have bare blue buttocks, and the mature male has bright red and blue genitals. So that's quite a common thing in these monkeys. A juvenile coloration is yellowish brown and a pink face, as we kind of saw over here. Let's see if we can spot you. Spot you again, little mate. Oh, there you go. So you can see that there. So this is a baby monk. Le baby monk. Very typical, like, funky black monkey look, and you can see that bare butt. Very, very cool. And they have been known to live in captivity for up to 33 years, so quite a long-lived little monkey. See if you can spot, that's a male there. It's definitely a male, you can tell by his size. See if you can spot a female over here. This is another good female. She's probably climbing. We'll have a look at you up there. Why not? So they have been known to live in captivity for about 33 years, and like other members of this genus, they do cover a wide area in their daily travels, mostly in search for food. And this species as well is considered vulnerable, probably because of habitat loss and bushmeat. That affects a lot of animals living in the Congo rainforest. So not too dissimilar. But yeah, very, very cool. Another great cakes mod. You know it's going to be great when it's a cakes mod. Really, really awesome. So next up, we've got another from all extinct animals from now on. So we're going to have a look at this one here. This is by a new modder called Frog Finch or something like that. Frog something. Really, really cool modder. Nice to see them new modders coming on the scene. But this is the first mod that we've kind of displayed here. This is the cave hyena. So this is a really cool one here. That's a male. Let's see if we can spot a female. Because we know females are the boss. There we go. So this is the cave hyena. So the cave hyena, or Cocada splaya, or Cocada splaya. These guys are an extinct species or subspecies of hyena known from Eurasia. Known from Western Europe to West Asia to Eastern Siberia. East Asia and Southeast Asia during the Pleistocene. They are well represented in many caves, hence the name cave hyena. And they were primarily dating back to the last glacial period of at least 30,000 years ago. And they served as apex predators. They were pretty much just what spotted hyenas were on the Serengeti. They were just like that on the mammoth steppe and a lot of habitats in Europe and Asia. They were hunting large animals such as wild horse, steppe bison, and aurochs, and were responsible for the accumulation of hundreds of bones in sinkholes and caves and stuff as well. So that's part of the reason why we know so much about this time period. They were also one of the main apex predators along the northern Eurasian ecosystem, along with the cave lion, and the two species likely would have lived in came in conflicts of each other, and just like modern African lions and hyenas, and likely would have lived together in clans. So there is some debate on whether this is a subspecies or its own species. So often treated as a subspecies of population of the living African spotted hyena. They were closely related, though the cave hyena was often larger in size, part of Bergman's rule. Genetic evidence actually suggests that the Eurasian populations of the cave hyena, which includes the West European splaya and ultima, were highly divergent from African populations, having been split for over 100 million years, and with evidence of limited interbreeding between the Eurasian cave lions, cave hyenas, and the African spotted hyenas. So it's very likely that a lot of people would have called them their own species, so I would agree with that statement. So these guys are definitely their own species of hyena. One of the cool things as well, they did coexist with Neanderthals and modern humans, and evidence suggests that they were consumed the remains of Neanderthals, at least on occasion as well. And we don't know exactly why they went extinct. They kind of went extinct with the rest of the megafauna at the end of the Ice Age. That's a combination of disease, climate change, and human activity. We don't really know exactly what happened, but I've repeated myself quite a bit on that, so I'm not going to go too much into that. But yeah, the size of the hyena of these guys, studies suggest that they are about 88 kilos or 194 pounds, which is about 60% heavier than the living spotted hyenas. And they did have more robust bodies and teeth, which very makes sense for these guys as well. And the endocarts actually shows their brains are more similar to spotted hyena than brown and striped hyena. They had a larger brain, which makes sense. And cave art shows they had a pelt, that was spotted, like modern African spotted hyenas. And this is a great example of what's called Bergman's rule. So because they lived in cooler climates, they got larger to better conserve body heat. So whether they considered a subspecies or their own species, they are still a great example of Bergman's rule. So they first appeared out of Africa into Asia in the early Pleistocene, about 2 million years ago, and arrived into Europe around the middle Pleistocene, about 100,000 years ago, with the extinction of the giant hyena, Pachycerata brevirostris, and that went extinct there. Then they basically became widely distributed. They ranged from, right into Spain, across Europe, down into Pakistan and India, right up across Russia and into Siberia, all the way down into Southeast Asia, so a very, very wide range. And they likely lived very much like modern spotted hyenas, living in clans, and isotope analysis that they actually clustered together. So they likely would have eaten a lot of medium to large size herbivores. However, the shape of their brain also said they were smaller than that of living hyenas, so they may have been less social than modern hyenas. But, both interpretations do still fit quite well. We'll have a look at the baby. I want to have a look at the baby. Where's the baby? Where's baby? I like baby. Baby is good. Where is baby? There's baby. Very cute. So that's what we think they would have lived like. And while cave hyenas did use cave, they were not confined by them. And when caves were absent, they would use, open air dens and stuff as well. And we also talked a little bit about their diets. They would have eaten a lot of... it differed little from the contemporary diet of African spotted hyenas, living in clans, being scavengers, but also preying on large ungulates and scavenging on, the remains of woolly rhinos, woolly mammoths. Just like, I like to say that, Europe at the time was, or you could say the mammoth steppe was just the fuzzy Serengeti. These guys were just fuzzy hyenas feeding on fuzzy, fuzzy elk and fuzzy bison and stuff like that. So very much those sort of animals. These wild horse were also common at the time, so they're likely a frequent prey. There were lots of remains of these species that were like cache and cave hyena dens. They also see the remains of more modern animals like wild ass, chamois, ibex, alpine ibex, and even cave bears. So quite a lot of different fossil sites that have been basically middens or stocks, caches of hyenas have a lot of the species that they would have been eaten with mixed, modern animals mixed with extinct animals like extinct camels, and which is really, really cool. In terms of their competition, the pathology suggests they, again, lived very much like, and they competed with cave lions and Homotherium and stuff like that on the Mammoth Steppe. So yeah, very, very similar in that regard. So in terms of his discovery, they were actually first discovered by George Cuvier in 1812, who found them in a cave and was like, oh, these look like the hyenas from Africa, which is very cool as well. They were originally considered Ultima, who was actually proposed by a name for these hyena, because they were originally just called Chordata splaya, which means cave hyena, and they were just considered a subspecies of the modern hyena. The Ultima was given to by Japanese paleontologist Matsumo Hokushiriko in 1915, based on the premolar. However, it was actually now considered invalid because it's only a single tooth and stuff like that. Most recent evidence suggests that Splaya and Ultima were raised to species level, and that Splaya and Ultima are based on differences from the hyena. So Ultima may not really be based. So on genetics, it suggests that genetics kind of ended that there's no clear separation from African lineages. However, analysis suggests that African and Eurasian Kokata populations are largely separate, having split about 2.5 million years ago. And then the nuclear genome of European East Asian populations was strongly divergent from each other. So there would have been African, Eurasian, and East Asian, pretty much, populations. And even more recently, a study looking at a cave hyena genome from Sicily found that with the 2020 study, there was a strong separation between European cave lions and African. Yeah, hopefully, yeah. Sometimes it happens. It is a little bit annoying. Yeah, very, very cool. So yeah, there have been some interactions, by Neanderthals and then by cave hyenas, indicate that they did occasionally steal Neanderthal kills, and they would have competed each other. There just would have been another predator for them in the ecosystem. Same with humans when they eventually came, competed, and potentially wiped out the Neanderthal. And then the rock art, there's a lot of rock art of the species. And then again, they likely, because of competition or very other factors, climate change, stuff like that, they went extinct with the rest of the megafauna probably about 20,000 years ago. Most recent estimates about 18,000 years ago, so actually potentially a little bit earlier. But there is some remains of some in the Iberian Peninsula that date to as late as 7,000 years ago, so it may have been part of a long, prolonged extinction for these guys, unfortunately. But yeah, really, really cool that we get to see this species here. Did a really, really good job, and I love talking about them, of course. So next up, we have got second to last. We have still got one more. Well, we're none of the cover Great Cake mods. We've got some here. This is a really cool one. I like to talk about these extinct mammals. These ones aren't related to any modern mammals. But here we've got Coryphodon, which means peak tooth. They are an extinct genus of Patodonts in the family Coryphodontidae. So if you guys, that's a lot of big words for you. So Coryphodon was a patodont. So this was one of the first large groups of large herbivorous mammals after the extinction of the dinosaurs. And these guys pretty much lived from the late Paleogene to the Middle Eocene, so between 57 to 46 million years ago. So yeah, right after the dinosaurs went extinct. And these were some of the first groups to kind of evolve to take that large herbivore niche. So the Patodont was a member of this kind of large group, and they migrated across what is now Northern America, being among the largest in their area, replacing Barylambda, which was one we covered before, and is actually considered the general ancestor of Hypoconodon in the late Eocene or Mongolia. It is known from many specimens in North America and fewer in Europe, Mongolia, and China, and was small to medium size, but there are some quite large species. This species here, I believe, is Lobatus. Let me just check quickly. Lobatus, which is actually one of the larger ones. So Lobatus was got quite large, about 700 kilograms. Not all species were that large, but Lobatus was quite large, about 700 kilograms or 1,500 pounds. So comparable in size, to a large cow. It's a very, very big animal. It was typically about a meter in height and about 2.5 length, 8 feet in body length. It was the largest and one of the largest known land mammals of its time. Very slow, lumbering animal. Looks very superficial, hippo-like with these saber teeth. Looks like this looks like a really, really weird animal, and I'm really glad we got this in the game. It's very slow with long upper limbs and short lower limbs, which need to support its weight. They didn't need much in terms of defenses because most predators were much smaller, and they actually had one of the smallest brain-to-body ratios of any mammal, with a 90-gram brain with an animal that's about 500 kilograms. So very interesting in that regard. Their dentition actually quite common, a lot in common with basal ungulates, and they have canines not too similar to things like Uintatherium, which is really fun as well in Eobacillus. So a lot of convergent evolution there, and they did have some adaptations to actually prevent those canines from breaking. Some features do suggest that these guys may have lived a semi-aquatic lifestyle, like a hippopotamus. Notably, their trunk vertebrae had reduced neural spines, which is quite common in mammals, commonly linked to water-adapted modes of movement. The limbs were also rather stout, with bearing 5 hoof-like toes. You can kind of see that there, looks very superficially tapir-like. And in terms of anatomy, the feet were likely similar to Uintatherium, but probably more similar to Convergence as well. So as I mentioned, there's a lot of different species described. So the type species is Eocarnis, but there's a lot of species that have been described, and a lot of them have been lumped or put into new species. And they seem to have got larger over the time. So a lot of the larger species, Proteus and some of these larger species would have kind of become larger evolved into these larger species. So there's a lot of variation within this genus. So as we kind of mentioned before, it likely lived a semi-aquatic lifestyle, living like a hippopotamus, though it was not more closely related to any modern mammal today. It was everything that makes it more ungulate or hippo-like is all due to convergent evolution. Had a very strong neck and strong tusks, which likely would have helped it unroot swamp plants and stuff like that, and was suited for, and its outer teeth in its mouth were quite well suited for processing plants. I think that one's a little bit too big, but for some reason the male's a bit too large. But we'll have a look at you. So it's really interesting as well. Fossils found on Ellesmere Island near Greenland shows that even these guys would have lived in the Arctic Circle. Warm tropical forest there, similar to the modern cypress swamps of the American South. Though the climate of the Eocene was much warmer than today, plants and animals living north of the Arctic Circle still experience the months of darkness and the 24-hour summer days. Isotope studies of tooth enamel revealed that during the summer these guys would eat soft vegetation such as varying plants. Though darkness, they would actually switch their diet to eating leaf litter, twigs and stuff when it was dark, and like fungi and stuff. And not only does the study reveal the dietary range of Coryphodon, it also reveals the behavior of northern populations living in the Arctic Circle. And in this respect, it did not migrate, and it simply just, instead of eating, the soft, nice plants that grow in the summer, and the winter when it's, a little bit more harder to find food, they just go to the harder stuff. And there has been some evidence potential sexual dimorphism. We do have enough specimens to potentially call that. The canines tend to be either very large or very small compared to the cheek teeth, and comparing that with modern hippos, it seems that males, have much larger ones than females. So a little bit we can know about this guy. Very, very cool. Another cool extinct species. And another Great Geeks mod we've got going now. This is last but certainly not least. We've got the long horned buffalo, or Palavolus anticus. So you're probably familiar with this one. This is actually one that went extinct not too recently as well. So this is Palavolus. These guys are an extinct genus of African wild cattle that lived during the Pleistocene. It was originally believed to be a giant member of the Caprinidae, or sheep. It is now known to be a buffalo. The best known specimen is Palavolus ordowaensis from the early Pleistocene of Olduvai Gorge, and there's two other species known as well. But a fourth is called Palavolus may exist, but may be the same as P. anticus. So there's Olduvaiensis, there's a few other species, but P. anticus is kind of considered as the name as well. In many respects, Palavolus resembles the modern cattle genus Bos, but has actually been compared morphologically to Aurochsen or Bos primigenius. It has been also suggested that they represent the same genus, in which Palavolus would be a junior synonym of Bos, though this has been challenged. Assuming they are distinct genera, they can be extinguished by their long face, elongated face, and very long half-moon-shaped horns as well. And they're also very sexually dimorphic, with males having much larger, longer, and slightly straighter horns, though horn length varied a lot between species. This is Olduvaiensis, or Anticus, as is also known as. Grew as larger as they evolved, with some of the larger ones having a horn span of about 6 feet, or up to about 1.8 meters, which is very interesting as well. Likely a grazer as well, and this was particularly true of Olduvaiensis, which had a broader snout than early Tucanaensis, which suggests it would have been much better at grazing as well. So, in terms of its early history, the holotype of itself was found in the Olduvai Gorge, and was called Olduvaiensis, which means monster. Palavolus means monstrous sheep. In 1991, there was another one found, Tucanaensis. It was distinguished 2005. A third one was found, Holloway, and then in 1979 there was Bos, Borbidus, and Paleoafricus, and then we're kind of lumped together. So we'll get into why it's called Anticus as well. So we'll get into that. So in 2007, a study looking at, Brevetto and Murrow looked at the morphology and actually found that Palavolus was actually not Palavolus, not Orvis. Was actually not monophyletic, so it was paraphyletic, and it fit well within Bos. And in contrast, they found the late Pleistocene form of Palaeovis antiquus seemed to be a close relative of the African buffalo. And this assumes, essentially surmises that these guys were all loved the boss, and while Antiquus was now considered basically in the genus of the African buffalo. A number of the authors actually reiterated this classification and found that it fit pretty well. Following the interpretations of the specimens point to previous genetic works in bovine lineages between Bos bulbatus and Sinoceros. They both split about 8 to 9 million years ago, indicating that either some of the fossil ancestors may not been yet discovered, may not have been found, but have been taxonomically mislabeled. And they further pointed out, looking at the ancestors of Bos primogenus in the study of African bovids, that Asian species of Bos may be derived from other fossil species. So it has been a bit of taxonomy, and as well looking at the 2008 study looking at as well. Looked at that, and then you can see this is why it was lumped into Ceros antiquus as well. So that's where it kind of gets this one from. So this one is Antiquus, the giant African buffalo, is from the late Pleistocene, the Holocene of Africa. So that kind of is a sideway. I've gone into this one as well. It is the largest species of its family, weighing up to 2,000 kilograms or 4,400 pounds. And during this fact, it is sometimes known as the African giant buffalo or the longhorn buffalo. So that's where it's kind of coming there. So I've kind of gone roundabout back into there. So we kind of mentioned before about this guy being a boss. Now it's been lumped into the same genus on his Kappa from Palaeovis and validating the genus. So it's moved. Palaeovis have a link, and then it was put back. So that's what happens. So Cinereus antiquus holds the distinction to be the largest bovid described from Africa, and Antiquus may have reached lengths of about 3 meters long, and length from muzzle to end of tail, 1.85 meters or 6 feet in height, and about 1.7 meters at the hindquarters, or 1.7 meters at the hindquarters. The distance between the tips of the horns was as large as about 2.4 meters, so that's a huge difference, about 7 feet. And it probably weighed about 12,000 kilograms, or about 2,600 pounds on average. The largest males could have reached up to 200,000 kilograms. I mean, not 200,000, 2,000 kilograms or 4,400 pounds. And it's quite famous for that, those large horns. It had a broadest geographic distribution of any recently extinct species of African bovid, and was pretty much found all across eastern, southern, northern Africa. And material dates back to late Pleistocene from about 107 to 13,000 years ago. However, rocks in North Africa suggest they may have survived even up to the Holocene, which is very, very interesting as well. Very, very interesting. So due to such large horns, Ceros antiquus was limited to wide open ranges with few trees, and isotopic and Mesozoic suggest they were browsers and grazers as well, and eat lots of large quality of low quality forage. And judging by the rock art, it seems pairs of the male animals with testes included fighted by ramming each other with their horns lowered, and they may have lived in large herds just like modern buffalo do. And there's actually a large amount of rock art that's actually been seen, in the Sahara, the Maghreb, and around in North Africa that suggests they would have been lived around the area, and they would have been able to survive until recent times, with actually them being depicted as being hunting with spears. But we think they would have went extinct in the Ice Age, at the end of the Ice Age. Very similar reasons, to most, megafauna, unfortunately, because, of all the megafauna stuff that happens to them, climate change and all that. But yeah, very interesting to see what's Palaeovis and stuff, their exponential predation by hominids on them. Very, very cool. Quite a few different species there. So Cinereus was actually taken away from this group as well. And yeah, not too different in most regards. Yeah, very, very cool. Nice to see this beautiful big male, the big longhorn African buffalo. Very, very cool. And we got to have a look at the cute little babies. Absolutely adorable. Great Cakes Mod always does a great job with these guys. Very, very cool. All right. So I think this is a great place to end the video. So I'm just going to pull out here. So I'm going to thank Jay Cordex for your Ras and your Yellowtail Felicia. Thank you, Lorby, for that really, really awesome black duck. Thank you, Frogstick, or if you say that name, or Frogshish. You'll put the name properly in the comments. for your cave hyena, and thank you Great Cakes Mod, of course, for your monkey, your Coryphodon, and the longhorn buffalo, Cinereus antiquus. So you did a really great job with that. So yeah, I really, really, really hope you guys have enjoyed this video. Hope you guys like and subscribe. Always remember, click the bell icon to get notified about anything. See if you guys enjoyed this video. Hope you guys like and subscribe, and bye-bye.